The skyline of Chicago shimmered beneath the night sky like a beautiful illusion. From the top floor of a towering glass penthouse overlooking the city, everything appeared perfect. Streams of headlights flowed through the streets like rivers of light. Elegant restaurants buzzed with laughter. Rooftop lounges overflowed with people celebrating lives that looked flawless from a distance. Yet inside the penthouse, silence ruled every corner. Marcus Bennett stood alone beside a massive window, barefoot on polished marble floors. An expensive glass of whiskey rested in his hand, untouched. The golden liquid reflected the city lights, dancing softly against the crystal. But no distraction could quiet the ache sitting heavily inside his chest. Marcus was surrounded by people every day. Executives, investors, reporters, assistants, admirers, and women constantly filled his schedule. Yet despite the endless attention, he felt completely alone. At 32 years old, Marcus had built one of the most successful agricultural technology companies in America. His innovations transformed struggling farming communities and generated extraordinary wealth. Awards lined shelves throughout his home. Magazine covers displayed his smiling face. His name opened doors before he even entered a room. Everything society promised would create happiness sat within his reach. Yet every evening ended the same way. The applause faded. The crowds disappeared. The silence returned. His phone suddenly vibrated across a nearby table. Marcus already knew who was calling before he looked. He slowly picked up the device and stared at the screen. Vanessa. He answered with little enthusiasm. Her voice arrived cheerful and polished. She said she had been trying to reach him all evening. Marcus responded briefly, claiming he had been busy. Vanessa laughed lightly and suggested a luxury getaway. She described private beaches, exclusive resorts, and extravagant experiences. Marcus listened quietly before asking a simple question. How much would it cost? The conversation changed immediately. Vanessa insisted it was not about money. Marcus pressed harder. He asked whether she would still call him if he lost everything, if his company vanished, if his wealth disappeared, if his name meant nothing. The silence on the other end became all the answer he needed. He ended the call without another word. Marcus lowered the phone and stared back toward the city. The story never changed. Different faces, different voices. Same outcome. People loved what he owned. They loved what he represented. Very few cared about who he actually was. Over the years, he had learned to recognize the signs. Conversations eventually circled back to his success. Affection increased whenever expensive gifts appeared. Loyalty disappeared whenever limits were established. Every relationship felt like a negotiation disguised as romance. A knock interrupted his thoughts. His executive assistant entered carrying a tablet and several documents. He politely reminded Marcus about an important investor meeting scheduled later that evening. The deal had been in development for weeks. Millions of dollars depended on the discussion. Marcus listened quietly before making a decision that shocked even himself. Cancel it. His assistant hesitated, convinced he had misheard. Marcus repeated the instruction calmly. The meeting was cancelled. After a brief exchange, the assistant reluctantly agreed and left the room. Once the door closed, silence settled over the penthouse again. Marcus placed the whiskey glass on a table and walked toward a collection of awards displayed along a wall. Among them sat an old photograph. Unlike everything surrounding it, the picture carried no prestige. A younger Marcus stood in a dusty field beside several farmers. Dirt covered his hands. Sunlight brightened his smile. Nobody in the photograph cared about his bank account. Nobody expected anything from him. They simply enjoyed his company. He stared at the image for a long time. A dangerous thought slowly entered his mind. What if he disappeared? Not forever. Just long enough to become ordinary again. Long enough to enter a place where nobody recognized his face. Long enough to discover whether genuine affection still existed. The idea sounded reckless. It sounded childish. Yet it was the first thought in months that made him feel alive. His pulse quickened as possibilities unfolded. He could leave daily operations to trusted executives. He could maintain remote oversight while remaining hidden. He could become someone else entirely. A regular man, a stranger, someone judged by character instead of wealth. For the first time in years, a genuine smile touched his face. Marcus picked up his phone and called his operations director. He calmly explained that he would be unavailable for an extended period. Emergency matters only. Everything else would continue without him. The director sounded confused, but agreed. When the call ended, Marcus returned to the window. The city still glittered below. The same lights, the same streets, the same endless race for more. Yet everything felt different now. A decision had been made. He quietly whispered a question into the darkness. Who truly loves a man when he has nothing? Outside, the city continued shining without noticing. Somewhere beyond those bright towers, a completely different life waited for him. A life that would challenge everything he believed. A life that would reveal painful truths. And a life that would introduce him to a love worth far more than all the wealth he possessed. Far away, destiny had already begun moving toward him, and neither of them knew it yet. The first thing Marcus Bennett noticed about the small Georgia farming town was the silence. Not the lonely silence that haunted his penthouse, not the kind that echoed through empty rooms and reminded him of everything missing from his life. This silence was different. It breathed. It carried sounds within it. Rustling leaves, singing birds, distant laughter, the hum of tractors working nearby fields. The peaceful rhythm of ordinary people living ordinary lives. The black SUV that had delivered him there slowly disappeared down a dusty country road. Marcus stood alone with a duffel bag resting on his shoulder. He watched until the vehicle vanished completely beyond a bend. Then reality settled in. Nobody knew who he was. No security team waited nearby. No assistants carried schedules. No reporters followed his movements. No investors expected immediate answers. For the first time in over a decade, Marcus Bennett simply ceased to exist. A strange mixture of excitement and uncertainty filled his chest. He adjusted the faded work shirt hanging loosely across his shoulders. The clothes felt foreign. Simple jeans replaced custom-tailored suits. His luxury watch remained locked away in Chicago. Even his haircut had changed. Every detail had been carefully planned. Here he was no longer Marcus Bennett. He was Mason Reed, a farm worker searching for employment. The town stretched before him beneath the warm morning sun. Small homes lined quiet streets. Pickup trucks sat outside weathered porches. Children rode bicycles through open yards. Neighbors greeted one another without checking social status first. Nobody paid attention to him. The feeling was strangely refreshing. An older man approached from across the road. Deep lines marked his face. Years of hard work had shaped his broad shoulders. His eyes carried wisdom earned through experience rather than education. "You must be the new worker," the man said. Marcus nodded. "Yes, sir, my name is Mason." The name still felt unfamiliar, but easier each time he spoke it. The older man introduced himself as Walter Brooks, manager of one of the largest farms in the county. His handshake was firm and direct. "You'll work under me," Walter explained. "Work hard, and we'll get along fine." Marcus smiled. "That's all I can ask for." Walter studied him carefully. "We'll see if you still feel that way after sunset." The farm covered hundreds of acres. Endless rows of corn stretched toward the horizon. Fields of vegetables shimmered beneath the bright southern sun. Workers moved steadily between crops, focused entirely on their tasks. Marcus recognized much of the technology being used. His company manufactured some of it. Yet standing there felt completely different from viewing production reports inside a corporate office. This was real. These were the people whose lives his business supposedly served. For the first time, he stood among them instead of above them. Walter pointed toward a group harvesting vegetables. "Start there. Watch first, then join in." Marcus walked across the field. Several workers glanced up briefly before returning to their tasks. Nobody seemed interested in his background. Nobody asked about money. Nobody cared where he came from. One tall man eventually grinned at him. "New guy," Marcus nodded. "That's me." The worker laughed. "Good luck. Your body is about to file several complaints." Marcus almost laughed. He exercised regularly. Personal trainers had worked with him for years. He considered himself physically fit. By lunchtime, he realized how wrong he had been. His hands burned. His back ached. His shoulders felt like concrete. The sun seemed determined to personally destroy him. Every movement demanded effort. Every hour felt longer than the previous one. Yet something unexpected happened. He loved it. Not because it was easy, because it was honest. No meetings, no negotiations, no manipulation, just work, real work. The soil stained his hands, sweat soaked his shirt, his muscles screamed, and somehow he felt more accomplished than after closing multi-million-dollar deals. Later, workers gathered beneath a large oak tree during a break. Someone handed Marcus a bottle of water. He drank deeply. It tasted better than any expensive drink he had purchased in years. The tall worker introduced himself as Derek. They exchanged small talk. Eventually, Derek asked where Marcus was from. Marcus hesitated, then smiled. "Nowhere important." Derek shrugged. "Long as you can work, nobody cares." The answer surprised him. Back in Chicago, people cared about everything. Titles, connections, money, influence. Here, effort mattered more, character mattered more, truth mattered more. By evening, Marcus could barely lift his arms. Every muscle protested while he walked toward a small cabin assigned to him near the edge of the property. The building contained only a bed, a chair, and a tiny table. No marble floors, no panoramic views, no luxury. Yet when he sat down, a strange feeling settled over him. Peace, real peace. The breeze drifting through the open window carried distant laughter from nearby homes. Families gathered for dinner, children played outside, neighbors talked across fences. Life felt slower here, and somehow richer. After sunset, Marcus stepped outside. The sky stole his breath away. Thousands of stars stretched across the darkness. Back in Chicago, city lights hid most of them. Here they seemed endless. He stared upward for several minutes. A quiet realization settled into his heart. If genuine love existed anywhere, it would never be found inside luxury penthouses or exclusive parties. It would be found in places like this, places where people had nothing to gain from pretending, places where character mattered more than wealth, places where a man earned respect instead of purchasing it. Marcus smiled softly. Tomorrow would be difficult. The day after would be harder, but for the first time in years, he looked forward to the future. As he prepared to return inside, headlights briefly appeared on a distant road beyond the fields. A small truck stopped near a neighboring property. A young woman stepped out carrying several boxes. The fading light hid most of her features. Marcus barely noticed her before she disappeared into the darkness. Yet something about that brief glimpse lingered strangely in his mind. He had no idea that the mysterious woman would soon change everything he thought he knew about love, trust, and himself. By the third morning, Marcus Bennett's body had finally stopped protesting every movement. The soreness remained, buried deep inside tired muscles, but it no longer felt like punishment. It felt earned. Grey dawn light slipped through the cabin window as he opened his eyes. For a moment he forgot where he was. Then the familiar sounds returned. Birds singing outside. A distant tractor engine. The soft rustling of trees moving with the morning breeze. A smile touched his face. For the first time in years, he did not dread the day ahead. He dressed quickly and stepped outside. Cool air greeted him. The sky was painted with soft shades of blue and gold as the sun slowly climbed above the horizon. Workers were already gathering near the equipment shed. Derek spotted him immediately. "Look at you," he laughed. "You actually survived your first week." Marcus chuckled. "Barely. That's how it starts. Soon you'll be complaining like the rest of us." Walter approached, carrying a clipboard. "No field work today, Mason," he announced. Marcus looked surprised. "What do you need me to do?" "Town market. We need supplies. Vegetables, feed, equipment parts." Walter handed him a short list. "Try not to get lost." Derek immediately grinned. "He definitely looks like somebody who could get lost." Marcus shook his head. "I appreciate the confidence." The walk into town took nearly 30 minutes. Unlike Chicago, nobody seemed rushed. Neighbors chatted from front porches. Children played in open yards. Elderly couples walked slowly beneath rows of maple trees. The atmosphere felt peaceful, human, alive. As Marcus followed the road, he realized something strange. He was walking slower. Not because he was tired, because he wanted to see everything. Back home, every minute carried a purpose. Every step moved toward another meeting, another objective, another transaction. Here, People simply lived. The town market announced itself long before he arrived. Laughter drifted through the air, vendors called out friendly greetings, country music floated from somewhere nearby. When Marcus finally entered the marketplace, he stopped for a moment. Color surrounded him. Fresh vegetables filled wooden stalls. Handmade crafts lined tables beneath shaded tents. Families wandered through the crowd, carrying bags and smiling easily. The entire place felt vibrant, authentic, real. Marcus pulled Walter's list from his pocket and began shopping. At the first stall, an elderly woman immediately charged him more than the vegetables were worth. Marcus knew it. She knew it. Neither mentioned it. The exchange made him laugh. Some things never changed. He purchased several items and continued through the crowded pathways. Then everything happened at once. Turning a corner too quickly, Marcus collided with someone. A basket tipped. Tomatoes rolled across the ground. Several peppers followed. "Oh no," the voice was warm, musical. Marcus immediately crouched down. "I'm so sorry, I wasn't paying attention." As he reached for a tomato, he finally looked up and froze. The woman from the truck. The woman he had briefly seen days earlier. She stood before him, wearing simple jeans and a light blue blouse. Nothing about her appearance seemed designed to attract attention, yet somehow she commanded it naturally. Sunlight highlighted her rich brown skin. Loose curls framed her face. Her eyes sparkled with intelligence and quiet confidence. Most striking of all was her expression. Instead of anger, amusement danced there. "Didn't see me?" she asked playfully. "Or were you trying to steal my vegetables?" Marcus blinked, then laughed, a genuine laugh, the kind he had not experienced in months. "I promise it wasn't intentional." That's exactly what a vegetable thief would say. They gathered the scattered produce together. For a brief moment, neither spoke, yet the silence felt comfortable, natural. She finally studied him carefully. "You're new around here." Not a question, an observation. Marcus smiled. "Is it that obvious?" "Very." "How?" She stood and adjusted the basket. "You walk like somebody who spent his whole life in cities." The accuracy startled him. "I'll take that as constructive criticism." Her smile widened. "Good idea." Marcus handed her the final tomato. "I'm Mason." "Naomi." The name settled into his thoughts immediately. Naomi Carter. Without realizing it, he repeated it silently. She noticed. "Making sure you remember." "Maybe." Confident. Hopeful. That answer earned another smile. Something warm stirred inside his chest, something unfamiliar. Naomi effortlessly lifted the basket onto her head. Marcus stared. "That looks heavy." "It is." "You carry that by yourself?" She raised an eyebrow. "Want to try?" Marcus immediately regretted saying yes. The basket weighed far more than expected. Within seconds, his balance shifted dangerously. Naomi burst into laughter. Real laughter. Bright, unfiltered, beautiful. Instead of feeling embarrassed, Marcus found himself smiling. "Okay," he admitted. "You win." "I know." Confident. Realistic. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, the noisy marketplace faded away. Marcus felt strangely aware of everything. The sunlight, the breeze, the sound of her voice, the way she looked directly at people when speaking. No calculation, no performance, just honesty. Naomi tilted her head slightly. "Why did you come here, Mason?" The question caught him off guard. How could he possibly answer truthfully? "Because I'm a billionaire pretending to be poor so I can find genuine love." The thought almost made him laugh. Instead, he chose the closest thing to truth. "I needed a change." Naomi studied him for several seconds, long enough to make him nervous. Then she nodded. Fair answer. No interrogation, no suspicion, just acceptance. Somehow that affected him more than it should have. A woman nearby called Naomi's name. She turned. "I have to go." Marcus nodded. Understood. She adjusted the basket again, then paused. "Walk slower, Mason." "Why?" "You see more when you aren't rushing." Then she smiled one final time and disappeared into the crowd. Marcus remained standing there, watching, thinking, feeling something impossible to explain. Eventually he remembered the shopping list in his pocket. But the market felt different now, brighter, livelier, meaningful. As he walked back toward the farm that afternoon, one realization followed him every step. He had come searching for something real, and somehow, in the middle of a crowded market, he had just collided with it. Far behind him, Naomi paused briefly beside her truck and glanced back toward the road. For reasons she could not explain, she found herself smiling too. The next morning, Marcus woke before sunrise. Not because of the birds, not because of the cool air drifting through the cabin, not because of work. He woke because of Naomi. The realization annoyed him slightly. He sat upright and rubbed his face. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. He had known her for one afternoon, one conversation, one accidental collision, yet her smile had somehow followed him into his dreams. Marcus stood and prepared for another day in the fields. Outside, dawn painted the sky with soft colors. Workers gathered near the equipment shed while sunlight slowly spread across the farmland. Derek noticed him immediately. "You look different today." Marcus frowned. "Different how?" Derek smirked, like somebody who found a reason to enjoy small-town life. Marcus shook his head. "You're imagining things." "Sure I am." The conversation ended there, but Derek's grin remained. Work felt easier that day. The heat remained intense. The tasks remained exhausting. Yet Marcus found himself smiling occasionally for no reason. Or rather, for one reason. Every so often, his thoughts wandered back to the market, back to Naomi, back to her laughter. By lunchtime, Walter called for a break. Workers moved toward shaded areas beneath several large trees. Marcus drank water and tried focusing on anything else. It failed completely. An hour later, he found himself walking toward town. Again, the excuse sounded weak even in his own mind. Maybe the farm needed more supplies. Maybe he forgot something. Maybe he simply wanted another look at the market. The truth followed beside him the entire way. He wanted to see Naomi. The town felt familiar now. Neighbors greeted him. Children waved. Several local shop owners nodded as he passed. For the first time in years, Marcus felt connected to a community, not because of influence, not because of money, because people recognized him. Mason. A worker. A neighbor. Nothing more. When he reached the market, his eyes immediately began searching. He hated how obvious it felt. It took less than 30 seconds. There she was. Naomi sat behind a produce stand, arranging fresh vegetables into neat rows. Sunlight filtered through a nearby canopy, creating soft patterns across her face. She looked up. Recognition appeared instantly. Then came the smile. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "You again," she said. "Disappointed?" "I haven't decided yet." He laughed. "Fair enough." Naomi folded her arms. "So what emergency brought you back less than 24 hours later?" Marcus glanced at the vegetables. "Critical tomato shortage." She stared at him, then laughed. "You're terrible at lying." "Good thing I wasn't trying very hard." Their conversation flowed easily, far easier than Marcus expected. They discussed the town, the farm, the weather, local traditions. Simple things, ordinary things, yet somehow every minute felt meaningful. At one point, Naomi studied him carefully. "You really came here because you needed a change?" Marcus nodded. "I did." She seemed to consider that. "Sometimes people leave because they're running away." "And sometimes?" "Sometimes they're trying to find themselves again." The comment struck deeper than she realized. Marcus looked away briefly. For the first time, someone had come dangerously close to understanding him, without knowing anything about him. A woman from a neighboring stand suddenly called Naomi's name. "Need help over here." Naomi stood. "Coming." Then she looked at Marcus. "You can help too, if you're not too important." The teasing caught him off guard. "Lead the way." For the next hour they moved through the market together. They helped vendors carry supplies, organized tables, delivered boxes. Nothing remarkable happened. Yet Marcus found himself enjoying every second. He watched Naomi interact with people. Children loved her. Older residents trusted her. Strangers greeted her warmly. She belonged here, completely, naturally. No performance, no effort, just authenticity. Eventually, Marcus asked a question. "Do you know everybody in town?" Naomi smiled. "Not everybody." "Feels like it." "Small towns are different." "How?" She thought briefly. "People pay attention. They notice when someone is struggling. They celebrate when someone succeeds. Life is shared here. Marcus absorbed those words quietly. Back in Chicago, millions of people lived side by side without knowing each other's names. Here, relationships mattered, community mattered, people mattered. The realization stayed with him. Later, they walked between rows of vendors while the afternoon sun slowly lowered. The crowd had thinned. The pace relaxed. For a while, neither spoke. The silence felt comfortable. Naomi finally glanced toward him. "You're thinking too much again." Marcus laughed softly. "How can you tell? You get this look." "What look?" "Like you're trying to solve a problem nobody else knows exists." The accuracy startled him. "Again, maybe you're more observant than I thought. Maybe you're easier to read than you think." Their eyes met. Something lingered there, something neither acknowledged, yet both felt. As evening approached, Marcus realized he had stayed far longer than intended. "I should head back." Naomi nodded. "The farm needs its employee, apparently." For a brief moment, neither moved. Then Naomi smiled. "You caused significantly less destruction today. Progress. We'll see." Marcus started walking away. After several steps, her voice stopped him. "Mason." He turned. "Yeah?" "Come back tomorrow." The words were casual, yet something about them felt important. Marcus smiled. "I was planning to." Naomi nodded once, then returned to her work. The walk back to the farm felt different, lighter, warmer. For the first time in years, Marcus looked forward to seeing someone. Not because of what they could provide, because of who they were. That evening, Derek immediately noticed his mood. "You went back to town." Marcus sighed. "Maybe." And nothing." Derek laughed loudly. "You're smiling while saying that." Marcus couldn't even argue. Later, lying in bed beneath a sky full of stars, he replayed the day. Naomi's laugh, her observations, the ease of being around her. Nothing felt forced, nothing felt calculated. Everything felt real. As sleep slowly approached, one thought settled deeply into his heart. For the first time since arriving in Georgia, he was no longer searching for a different life. He was beginning to belong. And somewhere inside that growing sense of belonging, Naomi Carter was becoming impossible to ignore. What Marcus did not know was that someone else had already begun noticing him too. From across town, a pair of watchful eyes had quietly observed every visit to the market. And those eyes belonged to a man who had no intention of sharing Naomi's attention with anyone. By the time another week passed, Marcus had completely stopped pretending that his daily trips to town were about supplies. Even Derek no longer bothered teasing him. The truth had become far too obvious. "Going to the market again?" Derek asked one afternoon while sorting vegetables. Marcus avoided eye contact. "Walter mentioned we might need peppers." Derek looked at a storage shed overflowing with produce. "We have enough peppers to feed 3 counties." Marcus sighed. "Fine, maybe I'm going for another reason." Derek grinned. Finally, honesty. Marcus shook his head and started walking away. Behind him, Derek called out loudly, "Tell Naomi I said hello." Several workers laughed. Marcus kept walking. His smile gave him away. The afternoon sun hung low above town when he reached the market. As always, his eyes found Naomi almost immediately. She stood behind her stall arranging baskets of fresh vegetables. She looked up before he even reached her. A small smile appeared. "You're becoming predictable." Marcus leaned casually against the wooden stand. "Consistency is an admirable quality. Sometimes." "And this time?" Naomi studied him thoughtfully. "I haven't decided yet." Marcus laughed. Their conversations had become effortless. Days passed more quickly whenever they were together. Hours disappeared without either noticing. Sometimes they talked about dreams, sometimes about fears, sometimes about absolutely nothing. Yet every conversation seemed important. While Marcus helped organize produce, an exhausted woman approached the stand carrying a small child. The woman looked embarrassed. "How much for the tomatoes?" Naomi quoted a price. The woman hesitated. "I don't have enough today." Marcus expected bargaining. Instead, Naomi quietly filled a bag with tomatoes and handed it over. More than the woman originally requested. "Take them," Naomi said gently. The woman's eyes widened. I can't accept this. Yes, you can. The woman thanked her repeatedly before leaving. Marcus watched the entire exchange. Once she was gone, he turned toward Naomi. You didn't even hesitate. Naomi shrugged. She needed help. You lost money. Maybe. And that doesn't bother you? She looked genuinely confused by the question. Why would it? Marcus stared at her. Naomi continued arranging vegetables. If I have enough and somebody else doesn't, helping seems pretty simple. The answer hit him harder than expected. His entire professional world revolved around protecting assets, protecting investments, protecting profits. Naomi viewed life differently. She viewed people first, money second. The realization stayed with him. Later that afternoon, they walked together toward a nearby river. The location had quietly become their place. Neither remembered who discovered it first. The peaceful water flowed between tall trees. Sunlight danced across gentle ripples. Birds occasionally crossed the open sky overhead. Naomi sat on a large flat rock near the shoreline. Marcus joined her. For several minutes, neither spoke. The silence felt comfortable, natural. Then Naomi surprised him. Why do you look at people that way? Marcus frowned. What way? Like you're trying to understand something deeper than what they're saying. The observation stunned him. Again, she seemed to notice things nobody else noticed. Maybe I'm curious. Naomi shook her head. It's more than curiosity. Then what is it? She looked toward the river. It feels like you've spent a long time trying to figure out what's real. Marcus became very quiet. The statement landed directly on the truth, without knowing his history, without knowing his name, without knowing anything at all. Naomi somehow saw him for the first time in years. Someone truly saw him. You're not completely wrong, he admitted. She nodded and left it there. No pressure, no interrogation, just understanding. As the afternoon faded into evening, their conversation drifted toward personal dreams. I want my own business someday, Naomi said. You already have one. She smiled. This stall belongs to my family. And your dream? Something I build myself. Marcus nodded. He understood that feeling perfectly. What about your family? The question softened her expression. My younger brothers. She smiled fondly. They're constantly creating chaos. Sounds exhausting. It is. And your parents? The smile faded, only slightly, but enough. They're gone. Marcus immediately regretted asking, I'm sorry. Naomi looked toward the water. Life keeps moving. There was sadness in her voice, but also strength, the kind forged through hardship, the kind impossible to fake. Marcus found himself admiring her even more. Not because she was perfect, because she was real. Completely real, and that truth made his own secret feel heavier than ever. That night, sleep refused to come. Marcus lay awake staring at the cabin ceiling. Every conversation replayed endlessly. Every smile, every laugh, every moment. And beneath all of it sat one unavoidable fact. Naomi believed he was Mason Reed, a farm worker, a regular man, someone who shared her world. But none of it was true, at least not entirely. What happens when she finds out? He whispered into the darkness. The question haunted him. Because deep down he already knew. The answer would not be simple. The next afternoon, Marcus arrived at the market feeling unusually quiet. Naomi noticed immediately. Something's bothering you. He forced a smile. Just tired. She clearly did not believe him. Instead of arguing, she handed him a piece of warm cornbread. Eat. Marcus looked surprised. Why? Because hungry people make bad decisions. He laughed softly. The simple gesture touched him more than expensive gifts ever had. They stood together, watching the late afternoon crowd. Eventually, Naomi spoke again. You know what I've learned? What? Money solves problems. Marcus nodded carefully. Sometimes. But it doesn't create peace. The statement settled heavily between them. Marcus understood it better than most people ever could. Naomi looked toward him. I've seen wealthy people spend years searching for happiness. Her eyes met his. The ones who find it usually stop looking for things and start looking for people. Marcus felt his chest tighten, because without realizing it, she had perfectly described his journey. The sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon. Long shadows stretched across the marketplace, and as Marcus walked back toward the farm that evening, one truth became impossible to deny. He was falling in love. Not with an idea, not with a fantasy, with Naomi, completely, deeply, dangerously. And with every passing day, the secret he carried grew heavier, because love built on honesty could survive almost anything. Love built on deception stood much closer to disaster. Marcus could feel that disaster approaching. What he did not know was that someone else had already begun moving against him. And before the week ended, a wealthy stranger from Naomi's past would arrive in town and change everything. The first time Marcus saw Preston Hayes, he understood exactly who he was before anyone introduced them. The black luxury SUV announced his arrival long before he stepped out. Its polished exterior looked completely out of place among dusty roads and pickup trucks. Children stopped playing. Conversations slowed, several people turned to watch. Even the atmosphere inside the market shifted. Marcus stood beside Naomi's stall, carrying a crate of vegetables. He felt the change immediately. Then the driver's door opened. A tall man stepped onto the street. Expensive sunglasses, designer clothing, perfect posture, perfect smile. Everything about him projected wealth and confidence, the loud kind, the kind that needed everyone to notice. Marcus felt something tighten inside his chest because once upon a time he had looked exactly the same. "Preston's back," somebody whispered nearby. The reaction was immediate. People recognized him. People respected him. People watched him. Marcus glanced toward Naomi. Her reaction surprised him. She had none. She continued organizing vegetables without even looking up. That alone told him everything he needed to know. Preston moved through the market greeting people confidently. His smile never wavered, his voice carried easily across the crowd. Yet Marcus noticed something. The moment Preston spotted Naomi, everything else disappeared. His focus narrowed, his attention sharpened. He walked directly toward her. "Naomi." His voice sounded smooth, practiced. Naomi finally looked up. "Preston." Her tone remained polite. "Nothing more. I was beginning to think you were avoiding me. I've been busy." "Busy with him?" The question came quickly, directly. Marcus felt the tension immediately. Preston's eyes shifted toward him, carefully, evaluating, measuring. Marcus recognized the look. Competition. "Who's this?" Preston asked. Naomi answered without hesitation. "Mason works at Walter's farm." Just that, nothing else. Something about the simplicity bothered Marcus more than it should have. "A farm worker," Preston repeated. His smile remained, but the dismissal underneath it was impossible to miss. Marcus remained silent. Preston turned back toward Naomi. "I brought something for you." A second man emerged from the SUV carrying several expensive gift bags. Marcus already knew where this was heading. He had seen versions of this scene countless times. "I don't want them," Naomi replied immediately. Preston laughed softly. "You haven't even looked." "I don't need to." "Why?" "Because gifts usually come with expectations." The statement landed directly. Preston's smile tightened slightly. "You think I expect something from you?" "I think you always do." Several nearby shoppers suddenly became interested in their vegetables, or at least pretended to be. The conversation had attracted attention. Preston folded his arms. "You're still stubborn. And you're still persistent." The exchange sounded familiar, like an argument repeated many times before. Preston stepped closer. "Naomi, I can give you a better life." Marcus hated how familiar those words sounded. Because years ago he might have said exactly the same thing. Naomi didn't flinch. "I already have a life." Preston gestured toward the market, the old buildings. "The dusty roads, the simple stalls. You call this enough?" "Yes." One word, no hesitation, no apology. Preston stared at her, clearly surprised. "You deserve more." "According to who?" The question caught him off guard. For the first time, Preston seemed unsure, only briefly. Then his attention shifted back toward Marcus. "So this is what you prefer now?" The implication was obvious. A wealthy businessman versus a farm worker. Marcus remained silent. He had no right to speak, not while hiding the truth. Naomi's voice cut through the tension. "This isn't about him." "It absolutely is." Preston's confidence began cracking. You think I don't see what's happening? Nothing is happening. Then why is he always here? The question hung heavily in the air. Marcus felt something rise inside him. An urge to defend himself, to defend Naomi, to say something, anything. But he stayed silent, because silence remained safer than truth. Naomi stepped forward. Her voice remained calm. Even if something was happening, it wouldn't concern you. Everything changed, immediately. Preston laughed, but there was no warmth left in it, only wounded pride. You're choosing a man with nothing over me. The words struck Marcus harder than expected, because Naomi believed they were true. Naomi met Preston's gaze. I'm not choosing between money and nothing. Then what are you choosing? Her answer came instantly. Peace. Silence followed, complete silence. Even the market seemed quieter. Preston stared at her, then slowly nodded. You'll regret this. Naomi didn't move. Maybe, she paused, but it'll be my regret. The conversation ended there, at least publicly. Preston turned toward his SUV. Before leaving, he looked directly at Marcus. This time, there was no dismissal, no amusement, no indifference, only recognition and warning. Then he left. The SUV disappeared down the road, but the tension remained, lingering, growing. Naomi exhaled slowly and returned to her work. People like him don't hear no very often. Marcus studied her. You handled that well. She shrugged. Practice helps. Does it? Naomi's smile faded slightly. Not really. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Marcus asked a question he never expected to ask. Why not accept what he's offering? Naomi looked toward him. Because I've seen what comes afterward. Meaning? She picked up a tomato and slowly turned it in her hands. Control. She paused. Expectations. Another pause. Ownership disguised as love. The words hit Marcus like a hammer, because deep down he understood them. Maybe better than Preston ever could. I don't want someone to purchase my happiness, Naomi continued. I want to choose it. Marcus looked away. His chest felt painfully tight. Everything she rejected was everything he secretly represented. Money, power, influence. And she had no idea. That evening, Marcus sat outside his cabin, staring into the stars. The conversation replayed endlessly. One sentence refused to leave his mind. Ownership disguised as love. For the first time since arriving in town, a new fear entered his heart. Not just that Naomi would discover the truth, but that once she learned it, she might see him exactly the way she saw Preston. A wealthy man offering advantages, expecting something in return. Marcus lowered his head. The truth was becoming heavier. The lie was becoming harder. And somewhere beyond the darkness, forces he could no longer control were already beginning to move. Because Preston Hayes was not the kind of man who accepted defeat. And before long, Marcus would discover that his biggest challenge was not winning Naomi's heart. It was keeping the truth from destroying it. The days following Preston Hayes' visit felt different. Nothing obvious had changed. The market still bustled with activity. The farm still demanded long hours. The river still flowed peacefully beyond town. Yet something invisible now existed between Marcus and Naomi. A growing awareness, a deeper connection. And beneath it all, a dangerous secret. Marcus tried focusing on work. He failed repeatedly. Every path seemed to lead toward Naomi. Every conversation somehow reminded him of her. Every quiet moment ended with her name in his thoughts. Derek noticed immediately. You're getting worse. Marcus looked up from a crate of vegetables. Worse? You spend half your day smiling at nothing. Marcus laughed. That sounds unhealthy. It sounds like love. The word lingered. Love. Marcus did not deny it. For the first time, he could not. Because somewhere between shared conversations and peaceful afternoons beside the river, Naomi had become far more than a friend. The realization frightened him. Not because he disliked it, because it mattered. That evening, instead of heading directly into town, Marcus walked toward the river. Their river. The sun hung low above the horizon, covering the water with gold and orange reflections. The world seemed calmer there, simpler, honest. Marcus sat on a familiar flat stone near the shoreline. He needed time to think. needed time to understand what he planned to do next, because the truth could not stay hidden forever. "I thought I might find you here." Her voice instantly pulled him from his thoughts. Marcus turned. Naomi stood a few feet away. The fading sunlight illuminated her face. She looked beautiful, effortlessly, naturally, dangerously. Marcus smiled. "I could say the same thing." Naomi walked over and sat beside him. Not too close, not too far. Exactly where she always sat. For a while they simply watched the water. Neither seemed rushed to speak. The silence felt meaningful, comfortable, like home. Finally, Naomi looked toward him. "You've been thinking too much again." Marcus laughed softly. "Is it really that obvious?" "Only to everyone." "That's encouraging." She smiled, then her expression softened. "Something's bothering you." Marcus hesitated. The truth stood right there, within reach, waiting. Yet fear kept him silent. "Nothing I can't handle." Naomi studied him carefully. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Answer questions without actually answering them." Marcus looked away. Because she was right, again, Naomi's ability to see through people unsettled him. Especially now, especially when she looked directly into his eyes. "Marcus." The name almost escaped before he stopped himself. "Naomi." She waited, patiently, openly, without judgment. The moment stretched between them. Marcus felt his heart pounding harder because he knew what needed to happen. He knew what he wanted to say, yet fear kept winning. Fear of losing her, fear of watching everything disappear, fear of becoming another wealthy man she no longer trusted. So instead of telling the whole truth, he offered part of it. "When I came here, I was lost." Naomi listened quietly. "I thought success would solve everything." He paused. "Turns out success creates problems too." She nodded slowly. "That sounds lonely." The simplicity of her response nearly broke him, because loneliness was exactly what had brought him there. It was. Naomi looked toward the river. "Everybody thinks loneliness only happens when you're alone." "It doesn't." She shook her head. "Sometimes it happens when you're surrounded by people who don't really know you." Marcus stared at her. The accuracy stole his breath. Without knowing his past, without knowing his name, without knowing anything. She understood him, more than anyone ever had. The realization made what came next impossible to avoid. Marcus turned toward her fully. "Naomi." His voice sounded different, more serious, more vulnerable. She noticed immediately. "What is it?" Marcus swallowed. The world seemed quieter, the river slower, the air heavier. Everything narrowed until only Naomi remained. "Being here changed me." Her eyes never left his. "You changed me." The words finally escaped, honest, raw, real. Naomi looked surprised, but she did not look away. Marcus continued, "I didn't plan any of this." "I know. I didn't expect any of it either." A faint smile appeared. "Neither did I." His chest tightened, because now there was no turning back. "I care about you." The sentence hung between them, simple, direct, powerful. Naomi lowered her eyes briefly, then looked back at him. The softness in her expression nearly shattered every defense he had left. "Mason." Hearing the name hurt now, because it wasn't truly his, yet it was the only version of him she knew. "This isn't simple. I know." "Do you?" The question carried more weight than the words themselves. Marcus hesitated. Again the truth stood waiting. Again fear won. "I came here looking for something real." That part was true, completely true. Naomi held his gaze for several seconds, then nodded. "Then don't ruin it." The words landed heavily, more heavily than she realized. Marcus felt them deep inside his chest. Because the one thing capable of ruining everything was already standing between them. A secret, a lie, a name. Yet despite all of that, he answered honestly, "I won't." For a moment he believed it. The sun slipped lower behind the trees. The sky transformed into shades of gold and crimson. A cool breeze drifted across the water. Neither moved. Neither wanted to. Slowly, cautiously, Marcus reached for her hand, giving her every opportunity to pull away. She didn't. Her fingers rested gently inside his. The simple touch felt more meaningful than anything money had ever purchased. Naomi smiled, a quiet smile, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. Then she leaned slightly closer. Marcus met her halfway. Their first kiss was not dramatic. No grand gestures, no fireworks, no audience, just two people sitting beside a river as the sun disappeared behind the trees. It was gentle, honest, perfect. When they finally pulled apart, neither spoke immediately. Words felt unnecessary. Naomi laughed softly. "You're still strange," Marcus grinned. "I've heard that before." "Good," she squeezed his hand, "because I like strange." For the first time in years, everything felt right. Everything. Yet later that night, lying awake beneath the darkness, Marcus stared at the ceiling. Naomi's words echoed endlessly. "Don't ruin it." He closed his eyes. The kiss should have brought peace. Instead, it brought fear. Because now he had something precious enough to lose. And somewhere deep inside, he knew the truth was running out of places to hide. What Marcus did not know was that the truth was already racing toward him. And by the following afternoon, someone from his old life would arrive unexpectedly. Someone capable of exposing everything with a single word. The morning after the kiss felt unreal. Marcus woke with a sense of peace he had not experienced in years. For the first time, his thoughts were not scattered. They were not consumed by meetings, investors, contracts, or expectations. They were centered on one person, Naomi. The memory of her smile lingered in his mind. The warmth of her hand remained fresh in his memory. The softness of their first kiss replayed itself again and again. Everything about the previous evening felt genuine, beautiful, dangerously real. Yet beneath that happiness lurked something darker. The truth. Marcus sat on the edge of his bed and rubbed his face. He had fallen in love. Completely. And Naomi still did not know who he really was. Outside, the farm buzzed with activity. Workers moved through the fields. Machinery hummed. Birds filled the morning air with song. Life continued normally. Marcus wished his thoughts would do the same. Instead, his mind returned again and again to the same question. When should he tell her? Because now there could be no doubt. The longer he waited, the worse the damage would become. Derek noticed his mood almost immediately. "You look like somebody who found happiness and lost it at the same time." Marcus forced a smile. "Maybe that's exactly what happened." Derek studied him. "Then be careful." Marcus nodded. The advice sounded simple. The reality felt impossible. The day dragged on. Every hour felt heavier. Every task required more concentration than usual. Marcus tried focusing on work. His thoughts refused to cooperate. Then everything changed. Shortly after lunch, an unfamiliar vehicle appeared near the edge of the property. Marcus froze instantly. The car was sleek, modern, expensive, and worst of all, familiar. His stomach tightened. No, not here, not now. The vehicle stopped. The driver's door opened. A sharply dressed man stepped out. Marcus recognized him immediately. Daniel Foster, one of his senior executives. One of the few people who knew every detail of his disappearance. Marcus started walking toward him quickly, too late. "Mr. Bennett," the voice carried across the farm, loud, clear, impossible to ignore. Every worker nearby looked up. Conversations stopped, tools lowered. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Daniel realized his mistake instantly. But the damage was already done. Walter frowned. "Mr. Bennett?" Several workers exchanged confused glances. Derek stared, completely stunned. Marcus reached Daniel. "What are you doing here?" His voice remained low, controlled, barely. Daniel looked uncomfortable. "We've been trying to contact you for days." "Not here," Marcus spoke through clenched teeth. "This couldn't wait." Walter approached slowly. "Mason?" The uncertainty in his voice felt like a knife. Marcus opened his mouth. Before he could answer, another voice spoke, a voice that stopped his heart. "Mr. Bennett?" Marcus turned and saw Naomi. She stood near the edge of the field carrying a basket, frozen, confused, watching him. The world seemed to shrink. Nothing else existed. Not the workers, not Daniel, not the farm, only Naomi. And the truth. Walter looked between them. "You know him?" Nobody answered. The silence became unbearable. Naomi slowly stepped forward. Her expression remained calm, too calm. What is he talking about? Marcus felt every prepared explanation disappear, every carefully planned conversation vanish. This was not how he wanted her to learn. Naomi, answer the question. Her voice never rose. That somehow made it worse. Daniel looked confused. You didn't tell them. The sentence hit like thunder. Naomi's eyes never left Marcus. For the first time since meeting her, he saw something unfamiliar there. Doubt. You're not a farm worker. It was not a question. Marcus swallowed. No. The word felt devastating. Naomi tightened her grip on the basket. Then who are you? Marcus closed his eyes briefly. There was nowhere left to hide, no excuse left to offer, no lie left to tell. My name is Marcus Bennett. Silence exploded around them. Workers whispered. Several recognized the name, others simply stared. But Marcus only watched Naomi, waiting, hoping, fearing. She processed the information quietly. Then finally spoke. You lied. 3 words, nothing more, yet they hurt more than any insult ever could. It's not that simple. The moment he said it, he regretted it, because it sounded weak, defensive, false. Then explain it. Marcus took a step closer. I came here because I needed something real. That doesn't answer my question. Her voice remained steady, steadier than his. I didn't expect to meet you. But you still lied. Marcus could not deny it, because she was right. Every word felt deserved. Was any of it real? The question shattered him, because the answer was yes. Every feeling, every conversation, every moment, all of it. Yet how could she believe him now? Yes. The word left his mouth immediately, without hesitation, without doubt, but Naomi looked away. I don't know what to believe anymore. Marcus felt something break inside him, because trust was the one thing he could not buy back. Not with money, not with explanations, not with love. Naomi looked at him one final time. Her eyes glistened, but she refused to cry. I trusted you. Marcus had no defense, no argument, no answer, only regret. Then Naomi took a slow step backward, creating distance, not just physically, emotionally. You should have trusted me enough to tell me the truth. The words landed harder than anything else, because they were completely true. Marcus reached toward her instinctively. Naomi, please, she shook her head. Not now. Then she turned and walked away. No shouting, no dramatic scene, no final accusation, just quiet heartbreak. Marcus stood frozen as she disappeared beyond the fields. For the first time in his life, he faced a problem that money could not solve. A wound he could not negotiate away. A loss he could not control. As the afternoon sun slowly faded above the farm, one terrible realization settled into his heart. He had finally found exactly what he was searching for, and in a single moment he might have destroyed it forever. The town did not change after the truth came out. The same sun rose each morning. The same roads carried people through their daily routines. The same market opened before sunrise. The same river flowed quietly beyond the trees. Everything looked exactly the same. Yet for Marcus Bennett, nothing felt familiar anymore. He had not slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Naomi walking away. Not angry, not hateful, just disappointed. That expression haunted him far more than rage ever could. Marcus sat alone inside the cabin as morning light entered through the window. The room felt smaller than before. The walls seemed closer. The silence felt heavier. For the first time since arriving in Georgia, he wished he had never created the false identity. Not because he regretted coming, because he regretted hiding. Outside, workers were already moving through the fields. Eventually, Marcus forced himself to leave the cabin. The moment he stepped outside, he felt the difference. People still greeted him, but cautiously, curiously. Whispers followed him, not cruel whispers, confused whispers. Questions hung in the air everywhere he walked. Derek approached quietly. For once, there was no joke waiting, no teasing, only honesty. You should have told me. Marcus nodded. I know. You should have told all of us. I know that too. Derek studied him carefully. But that's not what's hurting you. Marcus looked away. The answer came immediately. I lost her. The words felt painfully real. Derek remained silent for a moment. Then he shrugged. Maybe. Marcus frowned. Maybe? If she hated you, she'd be easier to understand. The statement caught Marcus off guard. What do you mean? People walk away completely when they stop caring. Derek folded his arms. She didn't look like somebody who stopped caring. The thought stayed with Marcus, all morning, all afternoon. By late afternoon, he could not endure the uncertainty any longer. He needed to see her, needed to talk, needed to try, even if the attempt failed. The walk into town felt longer than ever. Every step carried anxiety. Every turn brought fear. When Marcus finally reached the market, his heart immediately sank. Naomi was there, exactly where she always sat. Yet everything felt different. She looked tired, her movement seemed slower. Her smile toward customers never fully reached her eyes. Marcus stood quietly beside the stall. She noticed him instantly. Of course she did, but she said nothing. She simply continued working. Minutes passed, then more. Marcus remained there, waiting, patiently. Eventually the crowd thinned. Naomi finally looked at him. What do you want? The question was calm, not hostile. That somehow hurt more. I need to talk to you. She stared at him for several seconds, then stood. Walk with me. Marcus followed. They left the market behind. They did not go to the river. That realization hurt. Instead, Naomi led him down a quiet path surrounded by trees, far from other people, far from distractions. When she finally stopped, she turned toward him. Her expression remained guarded. Talk. Marcus inhaled slowly. Every speech he had rehearsed suddenly disappeared. Only honesty remained. I'm sorry. Naomi did not react. I never meant to hurt you. Still nothing. I came here because I was tired of people seeing my money before they saw me. Naomi's eyes narrowed slightly. That's not my responsibility. I know. But you made it mine. Marcus lowered his head, because she was right, again. I didn't expect to meet you. You keep saying that. Her voice remained steady. But every day after meeting me, you had another chance to tell the truth. Marcus had no answer, because every opportunity had existed, and he had wasted all of them. I was afraid. The confession finally escaped, raw, unfiltered, honest. Naomi looked surprised, only slightly. Afraid of what? Marcus laughed bitterly. Losing you. Silence followed. The wind moved gently through the trees. Somewhere nearby, birds sang. The world continued normally while his entire future hung in the balance. You already lost me when you decided I couldn't handle the truth. The words struck harder than anything else she had said, because deep down he knew she was right. Marcus looked directly at her. I never doubted your strength. Then what did you doubt? The answer came slowly. Your ability to forgive me. Naomi looked away. The honesty surprised even her. Several long seconds passed. Then she spoke quietly. Do you know what hurts most? Marcus shook his head. I believed you understood me. Her voice trembled slightly. For the first time, I thought you trusted me. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Pain, regret, love, all tangled together. I do trust you. Naomi laughed softly, not with amusement, with sadness. Then why didn't you act like it? Marcus could not answer, because every explanation sounded weak, every justification sounded selfish. The truth remained simple. He had been afraid, and fear had cost him everything. Eventually, Naomi stepped backward, creating distance once more, not as much as before, but enough. I need time. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. The words hurt, yet they also carried something unexpected. Hope, because she had not said goodbye. How much time? Naomi shook her head. I don't know. Another pause. Then the sentence Marcus feared most. I don't know if I can get past this. The honesty hurt, but it was honest, exactly what their relationship had been missing. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll wait. Naomi did not respond. She simply turned and walked away. This time her pace seemed slower, less final, yet she still left. Marcus remained standing there long after she disappeared. Alone, not abandoned, not forgiven. Suspended somewhere between both. That night, the stars felt colder above the farm. Marcus sat outside the cabin staring upward. He had spent most of his life controlling outcomes, building strategies, managing risks, creating solutions. For the first time, none of those skills mattered. Only patience remained. Only hope remained. Only love remained. And as midnight approached, Marcus received a phone call that changed everything once again. The voice on the other end belonged to Daniel. His company was facing a crisis large enough to demand Marcus's immediate return to Chicago. For the first time since arriving in Georgia, he faced an impossible choice: stay and fight for Naomi, or leave and save the company he spent years building. And deep down, Marcus already knew that whichever choice he made would change both of their lives forever. The phone call arrived shortly after midnight. Marcus sat outside his cabin beneath a sky filled with stars when his phone vibrated. He already knew it would not be good news. Daniel rarely called unless something was serious. Marcus answered immediately. What happened? The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. Then Daniel spoke. A major investor had withdrawn support. Several critical contracts were frozen. Competitors were moving aggressively. Board members were demanding answers. The company needed its founder. Immediately. Marcus listened quietly. Months earlier, the situation would have produced instant action. He would have booked a flight, called emergency meetings, taken control. This time, his thoughts went somewhere else. Naomi. Daniel finally stopped speaking. Marcus, I'm here. What do you want to do? Marcus looked toward the darkness surrounding the farm. For the first time in his life, the answer was not obvious. Because for the first time, success and happiness stood on opposite sides of a decision. The following morning, Marcus left. Not because he wanted to, because he had responsibilities. People depended on him: employees, farmers, families, entire communities connected to the company he built. Ignoring the crisis would only create more damage. Before leaving, he stopped by Naomi's stall. She looked surprised to see him. Marcus noticed the hesitation in her eyes. The distance remained. But so did something else. The connection between them had not disappeared. It had only been wounded. I'm leaving, Marcus said quietly. Naomi froze. For how long? I don't know. The answer felt heavier than he expected. She looked down briefly, then back at him. Your company? Marcus nodded. It's falling apart. For the first time since learning the truth, Naomi saw something beyond the billionaire. She saw a man carrying burdens, responsibilities, pressure, fear, the same things everyone carried, just on a larger scale. Neither spoke for several moments. The market continued around them. People bought vegetables, children laughed, life moved forward. Then Naomi surprised him. You should go. Marcus blinked. What? You should go handle it. Her voice remained calm. Those people depend on you. The statement touched him deeply. Even now, even hurt, she still cared. Marcus swallowed. Naomi. She raised a hand gently, stopping him. I still don't know what happens next. Honesty. Pure honesty. But running from responsibility won't fix anything. Marcus nodded slowly. She was right, as always. Before leaving, he handed her a small envelope. What's this? A letter. Naomi looked confused. Why not just say whatever is inside? Marcus smiled sadly. Because I need you to read it when I'm gone. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Marcus turned and walked away. Not because he wanted to, because sometimes love means giving someone space to decide. Weeks passed. Chicago welcomed him back with noise. Meetings, deadlines, pressure. The familiar chaos returned immediately. Marcus worked harder than ever. Day after day, night after night, the company slowly stabilized. Investors returned, contracts reopened. The crisis faded. Yet despite every success, something remained missing. Naomi. He never stopped thinking about her, never stopped wondering, never stopped hoping. One rainy evening, after another exhausting meeting, Marcus sat alone inside his office. The city lights stretched beyond massive windows. Months earlier, this view had represented everything he wanted. Now it felt empty. His assistant entered quietly. Someone is here to see you. Marcus rubbed his eyes. I don't have time. I think you'll want to make time. Something in her tone made him look up. Then his heart stopped. Standing in the doorway was Naomi. Marcus rose so quickly his chair nearly fell backward. For several seconds neither spoke, neither seemed capable of speaking. The distance between Georgia and Chicago suddenly disappeared. Finally, Marcus found his voice. "Naomi," she smiled softly, the same smile that had changed everything. "Hi, Marcus." He crossed the room immediately, stopping only a few feet away, afraid she might disappear if he moved too quickly. "What are you doing here?" Naomi laughed gently. "That's your first question?" Marcus smiled for the first time all day, a real smile. "Probably not." She looked around the office, then back at him. "I read the letter." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. That letter contained everything, every truth, every fear, every apology, every feeling he could never fully express face to face. Naomi stepped closer. "You were right about one thing." Marcus waited. "You came to Georgia looking for something real." His heart pounded harder, and a smile touched her lips. "You found it." Emotion tightened his throat. "Naomi." She shook her head. "What you did hurt me." Marcus nodded. "I know." "And it took time to forgive." Another nod. "I know that too." Tears appeared in her eyes, not from sadness, from honesty. "But somewhere between the lies and the truth, I realized something." Marcus could barely breathe. "What?" Naomi smiled. "The man I fell in love with was real." The words shattered every wall remaining inside him. Marcus reached for her hand. This time she did not hesitate. Their fingers intertwined naturally, like they belonged together. Because they did. Months later, Marcus returned to Georgia. Not alone. Naomi stood beside him. The town welcomed them warmly. Walter shook his head and laughed. Derek claimed he always knew how the story would end. Nobody believed him. The river still flowed peacefully. The market remained lively. The stars still shined brilliantly above the farm. Some things never changed, and that was beautiful. Marcus eventually learned something success had never taught him. Money can build companies, power can open doors, fame can attract attention, but none of them can replace trust. None of them can replace honesty, and none of them can replace genuine love. Because the most valuable thing in life is not finding someone who loves your success. It is finding someone who loves your truth. Standing beside Naomi beneath a sky full of stars, Marcus finally understood what happiness felt like. Not perfect, not effortless, real, and real was worth everything. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, your viewing location, and share this video.